10/11/98. It's been almost 30 years since I left for Long Island. After retreating from the small of studio of Ashland, Kentucky, and the life I once knew, leaving only a small suitcase and the clothes on my back. I ran and didn't look back from a childhood paradise that slowly evolved into a traumatizing nightmare. It was then and there that I was a young adult, down on luck, and barely making enough to pay monthly rent for the apartment a friend and I shared. I was barely making minimum wage at my first job, where I would flip burgers for 9 hours a day in the heat. The small eatery was just beside a long stretch of highway, which my superstitious boss used to call Ghost Road, a place where ghosty hitchhikers would hail rides from unknown passerbys. I switched my apron for a fluorescent vest and to start pulling shopping carts into the local grocery store and mopping the floors for 12 hours a day for 5 days of the week. Again, barely making minimum wage. I quit after only 4 weeks of looking for something better, a high-paying job. After receiving the notice that I was going to be evicted, it was while reading the morning paper, 3 days, that I found an answer. Perhaps this would be the answer to my problem. The small article in Want's ads called for pairs of helping hands to build sets for a kids' show at the small nearby of studio that was about 30 minutes away. I was excited and I ran for my red sedan, hoping to get there before somebody else could. Something told me that this would be my day, and I was hoping it would after driving for what felt like 40 minutes. I pulled into the nearly abandoned parking lot and looked for an unlocked door, or at the very least, somebody to unlock said door. At last I found a door that would open and was hit with a blast of cool air from the air conditioners being nearly on full blast. I was about to approach the front desk to ask for more information about the job offering, but was stopped by an older gentleman in khaki pants and a blue polo, with neatly combed back brown hair with green eyes. When he asked if I was here for a job position and I said yes, he smiled from ear to ear. He gripped my hand like a python and shook it. He seemingly overly excited. Perhaps he forgot to take some medication that morning, or was on a caffeine high. I wasn't sure which. Maybe both. I couldn't tell you honestly. "The name's Bob Fields," he said, still shaking my head. "Or just boss. I am so happy that someone saw the article. Times have been really tough because of the recent tax cuts and stagehands walking off. Please, follow me." When he finally let go, my hand was red to numb. I followed him through the walls of the set, trying to shake it off. Mr. Fields was a large person, but could you blame him? He really loved his work and seemed to love the people there, like a second family. Arriving onto the set, where there were about a dozen people in different parts of the large room, which made me think that they shot different shows in one room at the same time. He showed me around the room and explained the different shows they were working on. It didn't take an expert to take one look at the set pieces and realize how cheap and awful they were, making it loud and clear how seriously low budget they were. I knew times were tough, but not this tough. The first show he introduced me was called Jumbo Circus, an educational kids show that showed kids how to count, tell time, identify colors, shapes, and other things. It was just a very basic show for the pre-K demographic. After meeting with the director and cast, I declined. It was nothing against them, but it was just my extreme claustrophobia which had haunted me since I was a kid. Fields then led me to another show. This one tried to be educational in a sense. It tried to teach kids morals lessons in each episode. Unlike Jumbo Circus, it was mostly live action, where the people making up most of the cast. This one had a cast consisting of only puppets of different shapes, sizes, textures, and colors. The show was called Sunshine City, which followed up a group of puppet kids who would deal with the real-world problems that most kids had never heard or experienced of. Common morals were such as stealing was wrong, treat others with the way you want to be treated, and respect authority. But for some of the episode themes were rather serious, especially on the kids show. One of these episodes was about the character's Lucas, who was bullied by another puppet, Peter, because he felt his skin was abnormal color, and the only one of all the puppets on the show. One was puppeteers who I spoke shortly before I moved, told me that the darkest episode the show did, it was only shown once, because of the content, which resulted in immediate cancellation of the show. In the sad orange puppet Ron, he was more upset than usual. He did his usual woe is me speech, then left, not returning until the last 2 minutes of the episode. In short time, Ron could be seen sitting on a rock by the train tracks, staring at the cupboard's sunset horizon. The sounds of a train could be heard, getting louder and louder with each second. Ron sighs and stands up as the train speeds forward. Ron jumps out of it and the scene cuts to black. The last shot is to fade in, showing Ron's dismembered body, puppet arm lying beside the tracks. Cotton was coming out of the limb, and the train chugs down towards the sunset. The final scene and the credits rolled in silence. The nature of the show was weird to me, and it made me feel uneasy. I again declined the offer. Fields sighed and showed me the third show they were working on. It was another puppet show which was about pirates. The title of the show on the script was called Pirate Place, but it seemed to be crossed out faintly in pencil, with a new name written on it beside it, Campbell Cove. Fields explained that the plot of the show, which was about a girl named Janice who would go on adventures with a pirate named Percy, who wasn't really a good pirate, but because he got scared real easily. The more he spoke about it, the more interested I'd become. He told me about the boat that the director said, in a dream like an Edwine voice, conjured up the images of a smiling boat with big eyes that seemed to swallow the sea and sing. I could faintly hear the calope music playing as the waves would crash against the boat. He explained two other characters, the villains. They were two strange puppets, Horace Horrible, who had tall teeth, and handlebar mustache and monocle. The skin taker was a skeleton on strings, which he had glass eyes and a cape on top hat. The characters of Janice reminded me of myself as a kid, dreaming about what's going on adventures and looking for hidden treasures on the seven seas. I signed up for the project, and Fields smiled. He introduced me to the director of both my childhood dream, Emerson Grimes. Grimes seemed like an okay guy. He was wearing hiking boots, blue jeans, and a Hawaiian shirt. He was also wearing a trucker hat, perhaps hiding possibly thinning hair. He took me to a rec room where the rest of the set of the small crew was drinking tab and playing darts. At the time, he only had 3 voice actors, Todd Smith, Michael Cullen, and Leonard Lloyd. They were all still looking for someone who played the opponent of Horace Horrible, and they were sending out to casting director and a crew member to find someone to play as Janice. A week later, they found somebody to voice Horace Horrible. Grimes found the comfort in Jeremy Kirby, who had recently finished working on another kids show for studio Fisherman Fred, and it would go on to the backstage work for another strange kids show, Peppermint Park, around the same time. They found somebody to play Janice. She wasn't a kindergarten student from a nearby school, Jodie Silver. She was quiet and adorable. She didn't complain much, unlike most kids who auditioned. All you need to keep Jodie happy was an apple juice box and a peanut butter and banana sandwich and a coloring book, and she was good to go. To help get the ball rolling faster for us, I had gone to the local craft store and flea markets with the crew to get props and build puppets and the sets. The most tedious must have been building the laughingstock, which took us about 2 weeks to do. Production started about 5 weeks after I got signed on. The production had been very rough and was becoming a challenge. Jodie would often come down with fevers and become overheated because of the intensity of the floodlights, which were always beaming down on her. It was becoming taxing for the stage hands, since Pirate Percy's head had been remodeled twice. After the prolonged heat melted in his head, he became very concerned about her health, and opted to find a body double so they could be switched out for each other. It was a common trick that many shows did, and we were about to do the same, but Grimes refused and said that it would be fixed and she'll just adjust to it. In 3 weeks' time, Walter Shea, one of the gaffers, was injured on a set freak accident, resulting in a broken leg, leaving him on crutches for the entire show's run. Much of the crew I consider abandoning the project because Grimes' incompetence, but Like everyone else who had it tough, we just bit our tongues and hoped for the best. After Shay was replaced, things seemed to go back to normal and we were on a normal schedule. Things seemed to be going up for us until an episode 7 was in production. One of the writers, Abby Levi, revealed to me during a lunch break that Grimes had been destroying scripts, replacing the entire stories. I hadn't noticed until she brought it up. Evidence of his tampering was obvious, especially prior to the episode 7, which was extremely clear of what was going on. Jodie, who knew her script like the back of her hand, would often be confused by stage positions and what she was supposed to do. She would often ask Kirby, Horace Horrible, before takes, what she had to do. Her parents would go over the script with her every morning and night, so the changes confused her. Originally in episode 7, Percy takes a scroll that explains where to go for the next hidden treasure from Horace Horrible. It was replaced by something of Macrobay. It started off as being another normal episode, with Janice and Percy talking outside the cave, then somehow focused on the Skin Taker, revealing the dark origins of his hat and cape. Grimes told the cast just to go along with it. Despite the eyebrows they raised, Michael Colin, the Skin Taker, was the most uncomfortable with the episode. Because of both script and how Grimes wanted him to present the dialogue, it was chilling, but he went along with it anyways. They didn't show anything explicit or violent, only delivering some lines which were subtle, but still unsettling. The infamous scene that was most remembered was Janice asking the Skin Taker's mouth moves why the way it does. He didn't say it to her, but to the camera, to grind your skin. It was the episode where I and the others started to question Grimes' sanity. I wanted to believe he was just doing this way because of the long hours he worked, but the others were trying to show me that it wasn't the case. He was a madman, and something had to be done. The episode resulted in lots of mail from viewers, asking where in the hell we were doing and what was going on. It also resulted in our first warning from the studio. If we got 2 more, then the show was going to be cancelled, just like the future Sunshine City. I remember spending long hours in the rec room working with the workers and crew to jot down ideas and brainstorm. Somebody suggested the more comical episodes involving Horace and a record player, and an awkward episode involving Janice's and the Skin Taker's birthdays, plus the introduction of a new character, Nathan. Nathan was written as Janice's next-door neighbor and friend. The ideas were pitched and sent to the studio, approved by Mr. Fields, when they were aired a few days later. Only one episode, Nathan was gone. Viewers wrote to us in letters asking where he went and if he's coming back. From websites I've examined, Nathan's disappearance was a big topic and had many theories. Some fans claimed he was captured by the Skin Taker, having his skin made into a coat. Others believed that he went back to the real world or that he got lost at sea. Those even darker minds believed that Nathan was murdered on set. We had finished making episode 11 and we were set to air it on the following Tuesday. Mr. Fields approached us, saying that the ratings and views had been rocky. We had more than one more chance to improve ourselves. If the next one wasn't good, then the show would be canceled. If we could make an episode that would knock their socks off, then we'd be in good hands. Fields took the finished product and we went back to brainstorming ideas. The next episode was going to be the most jam-packed, the longest yet. There was going to be one last showdown between Percy and the villains to be king of the sea. Along the way, Percy would gain a mass amounts of courage and by the end become the brave sea captain. In the end, Nathan would set sail on a wooden raft with a group of buccaneers to help Percy and Janice defeat Horace Horrible and Skin Taker, who would both end up being lost at sea, never to return. Janice ends up leaving the world of pirates, return to the real world, while Nathan would go on quests with Percy and the Laughingstock. She would only show up on a few occasions to help them, and when they got scared the most, the idea was improved much to the crew and cast. After hours of typing scripts, we sent a copy off to Fields and Grimes, hoping to save the show. Fields was out of town, but called us saying it was amazing. Grimes, on the other hand, upon receiving the script, had locked himself in one of the editing rooms for several hours. Production for the last episode was late in October, on the calm, quiet night of 1971. It was the most terrifying night of my life. I arrived on the set around 6:30, and the cast and crew for the other shows had left, leaving us on the set alone. A storm was picking up outside, causing the wind to pound against the structure of the building and the lights to flicker. Smith and Levi returned with coffee and donuts, or juice for Jody, and waited for the rec room until we were expected to get on set. A few of us were playing cards, while Colin would play checkers with an old maid with Jody, and injured Gaffer was keeping an eye on the news and weather. It was around 8:15, later than usual, when Grimes opened the door, telling us to get ready in 5 minutes. In the few seconds he had placed his head on the door, I saw him change in him. His eyes were darker, hollower, and slightly bloodshot. His skin was much paler, and his hair seemed to be falling out. Jody grabbed onto Colin's arm and buried herself in her side. You can hear him faintly whisper to her, "It's okay," repeatedly. At 8:20, we were on set, getting ready to go. We had all of our scripts and went to skim them. Grimes walked over to us and took them, throwing them in the garbage. "There's change in plans," he said. "Changes?" Smith asked, raising an eyebrow. "What kind of changes?" "It's only something minor," Grimes said. "Don't you worry." Grimes turned around, walking for a folder on the chair, still repeating, "Don't you worry," to himself. Coming back, he had a few pieces of paper, each for all of us. I choked, and I could see the terror in the eyes and the cast and the stage and hands that were looking over their shoulders. One word was written on the paper over and over again, taking up the page in bold cap-locked letters. "Scream." "Wilson," Grimes said, calling the stagehand, "take Jody to the playroom. Don't forget to give her the new script." Tom Wilson looked at it, with his eyes beginning to whiten. Jody looked concerned, as if she'd seen a ghost or something. Tom sighed, taking Jody by the hand to play in the room where the young kids on set would usually go and cut loose on their breaks. Grimes took the rest of the actors and some of the crew members into a sound room where most of the force of its disturbance. I remember he would scream and shout like a lunatic, telling them to scream and cry out and shout and in the sound booth. I hear that the front desk secretary could hear it. I bet people would have thought making a snuff movie what was going on, as if they walked in the building. I was standing by Grimes, watching in terror as Abby was crying in the corner, and Shay was doing what he could to comfort her. The fear that Colin had in his famous Skin Taker episode was coming back. He looked legitimately frightened. He put down his hand and around his throat and backed him up into the wall. His face was pale and his eyes were watering. He fell down to the floor, still gripping his neck in terror, staring at the cage microphone, which dangled above his head. Smith and Lloyd were shouting almost weird and audible phases. Kirby's screams sounded like cries for help, as if they were his last words before he had his throat cut open. A cow waiting at a slaughterhouse. The stage hands that were beside me and one of the good writers, Jennifer Hess, would only watch in fear. Hess could be heard faintly saying, "What is this?" and "Oh my God." One of the few things we said that could be heard from the episode. I shut my eyes and prayed it would stop, but only made it worse, only giving my imagination fuel, and the thought I was making a snuff film. "Louder!" Grimes demanded, with insanity in his eyes and voice. "Louder! I want your throats to be bleeding by the end of the take! Louder! Harder!" Grimes went towards the set to give the other puppeteers directions to shake them and flail them around violently on the wooden floor cardboard stage. Throw them, beat them, anything you wish. One of the puppeteers, Sandra Letting, would have to go on to describe the night on making the episode as a puppet snuff film. The screams and the cries of the actors, combined with the abuse of the set pieces, just made it a nightmare. I'm surprised Grime didn't even request we pour blood out of Laughingstock's mouth, or have Percy sacrificed to a sea demon, or have Janice be made into a sweater on camera. Sandra Letting. The cameraman probably endured the worst of it, not only having to record the abuse of the pieces Dad spent so much time working on, but also the death like wails from behind it so real. He wasn't sure whether or not he was recording his disaster to distract them from Grimes murdering the actors. After being gone 20 minutes, Wilson came back with Jody. Her face and eyes were red. Wilson's were too. I'm not sure who made me cry more, him or her. Wilson refused to talk about it. I'm the only one that had to believe that he's deeply upset for having to put Janice through this hell. It was the hell that she should be happy with, since seeing the destruction of all the puppets she worked with would have broken her heart. The skin taker's jaw was hanging off its hinge. Strains on Percy were broken, as some of his parts around him were just thrown about. The strains that operated Laughingstock were snapped, and his foam jaw was on the floor in a pool of sawdust. Horace Horrible seemed to be the only one to come out okay. Everybody left the sound booth in silence. Grimes took the recorded audio and locked himself in the editing room like he did before. The cameraman for the puppet Death Feeder and Janice's meltdown cracked open the door to give Grimes the footage. His pale arm reached through, snatching the reels before slamming the door and locking it. It was the last we ever saw of him. Smith, with a sore throat, took Jody home before the storm could get any worse, as the rest of us left as quickly as we could and hoped that Fields or somebody would pack the props up. I went back to my apartment to pack everything up I had to drive for Long Island. I needed to separate myself from Ashland as quickly as possible. But I learned not too far after that you can't just run for your problems. They are a rumored curse that plagued the set. Cast came shortly after the final episode aired, and it hit hard. Grimes had disappeared the night before the episode aired. Nobody from the studio remembers seeing him leave, nor did anyone in the neighborhood or his wife. His car was still in the parking lot, but every trace of him was gone. The only thing that was left on our side of the seat were the discarded scripts, as well as some teeth and large clumps of hair, which were scattered around the floor. Later proven to match Grimes' DNA, he was presumed dead in December 72, several months after looking failed. Shay was in an injured car accident 6 months after the final episode was aired, leaving him paralyzed from the waist down. Lloyd nearly drowned in a kayaking trip in 73. Jennifer Hess, one of her writers, suffered a third-degree burns in a house fire that same year. Smith committed unalive in 78 after being rumored to have lost lots of money in the stock market or losing a winning lottery number that would have made him a multi-millionaire. Colin's son Trevor was murdered in the fall of 81, 10 years after the famous Skin Taker episode was aired. His killer remains at large, and both Wilson and Fields both died from massive heart attacks in 87 and 94 respectively. It's been nearly 30 years since that night, and I'm still too afraid to go back to the city, let alone watch an episode again. I've been emailed on different occasions by people claiming to have information about where to find the episode and the missing set pieces. I just ended up deleting them. Not sure why Grimes did this. I don't want to say he was just an artist and gone mad, because I don't feel like I can. If you ever find one of us, please, I beg of you, do not bring this show up. We want to leave it in the past where it is, and try to forget about it. I still occasionally get nightmares and flashbacks to the day, and the ones building up to it, when they happened. It makes me sleeping and eating almost impossible. Those claiming that they had a set piece, that's not likely. Nearly all the props and footage were incinerated in 1983. If anything survived the blaze, the location of them is unknown, and I'd rather not know where they are. And if anyone who remembers seeing the show was hurt in any way, I apologize deeply. But the nightmares you have because of it, they'll never compare to the ones I have and still do. What's up, my pretties? It's the Lion Queen here. I want to appreciate you all for tuning into this video. And I do appreciate you guys supporting my video by giving this video likes and stuff. If you really enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe if you're new, ring the bell for notifications to when I upload so that way you guys will get updated for whenever I upload. If you want to follow me on Twitter or DeviantArt, feel free to leave a follow on those if you are interested in following me on those socials. If you want to support my backup channel, known as Miss Dark Shigo, feel free to subscribe to it, as a link to that will also be in the About page section. And with that being said, and that being the case, thank you so much for watching, my pretties, and as always, please, stay pretty.